Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond over in Germany. We're going to jump into what's going on in his world, in the markets, in the NFT world. But first, let's check in. How you doing, man?
Hey man, I'm doing great. I was actually going to ask how you are because I read today that I know that you eat a lot of protein, and I read that egg prices reached new all-time high of 4.95 per dozen in the United States. So what do you eat, man?
Well, we still eat lots of eggs for sure. Yeah, lots of eggs, lots of chicken, lots of beef. But yeah, no, it's funny. People keep talking about it.
Why was that news?
The egg thing? I have no idea, man.
Yeah.
I haven't really followed it. You know, my wife could probably tell you because she's all into the food thing. But I haven't really followed it. I think it had something to do with, wasn't there like a bird flu outbreak or something recently? Let me see. You know what? There's probably a headline. Let's see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was all over X today, and even on Watcher Guru. So I felt like, okay, that isn't that crypto related? I don't think it is. So why is everyone telling me about the egg prices in the United States?
Yeah, you know, well, it doesn't look like it's virus related this time. I have no idea. Honestly, last time it was like a bird flu thing. This time I have no idea. I know there's been some new regulations put in place around farming, but honestly, I haven't looked at it closely. I just know that everyone here is complaining about it. So now that you've brought it to my attention, I'll probably have to look it up because I'll get curious here.
Yeah. Another thing I read is, and I wasn't sure how that actually relates to crypto markets or anything. Watcher Guru was posting that U.S. government looks to ban the purchase of junk food using food stamps. And first of all, I never really understood what food stamps are. Maybe you can tell me.
Sure. Yeah. And I know quite a bit about the food stamp world. We used to be in the rent to own market, so we dealt with like a lower end clientele quite a bit. It's generally a program. It was a program designed to help feed people back in the day. And you actually had stamps. You would go into a grocery store and you would have a little card that was filled with they were literally food stamps, and you would give them to the cashier to pay for your food. It was like a food coupon kind of a thing. But in recent years, I think it started maybe in the Obama years, or maybe even slightly before that, they started doing, instead of like paper payments for like the food stamp program, they actually gave you a debit card, and then they would just load your debit card. So if you were on food stamps, now you didn't have to go through the, embarrassment of pulling out a food stamp coupon booklet. You just swiped a card like everybody else. But basically it's just a program that's designed to, help people purchase groceries who qualify or meet certain low income requirements.
Okay, and that was all over the United States, so it wasn't just for particular states.
It's a
but
federal
all over the country.
It's a federal program, yeah. Nationwide program.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of them.
Because there's more than food stamps. I always thought that when you have no money in the United States, you're doomed. You can't do anything about it, and you live on the streets and don't get food.
It's pretty funny, man. People tend to think that way, but I think as far as safety nets go, the U.S. has quite a few safety nets for people.
So why is homelessness still such a big thing? I mean, or is there a program to, get people into houses or apartments, or do they not have that option?
Yeah, it's funny. We have tons and tons and tons of programs, especially if you are minority or female. There are just tons and tons and tons of programs. But the issue is, I think with homelessness and in general, is that there's a lot of psychological issues going on as well. So, I mean, putting someone in a home doesn't solve their psychological issues. It doesn't solve drug abuse. It doesn't solve addiction. It doesn't solve all the things that people have sort of, attached themselves to as going to be, hey, this is going to be my way of life because XYZ happened to me or because I'm feeling a certain way. I mean, you can't throw money at a problem like that and
Mhm.
have it be solved. You actually have to work with the individuals. So all these programs are just stopgap measures. And then, of course, the homeless thing has been encouraged in a lot of places, sanctuary cities and especially out west where the weather tends to be more mild. If you're homeless in California, the weather's pretty nice year round if you're in Southern California. So you can kind of live on the street and you can kind of take advantage of people's kindness and do your thing. Um, of course, there's limits to certain programs and, they do run out at certain points in time. So it's not infinite. But if you are serious about getting your life together, there's a program for housing, there's a program for food, there's a program for shelters, there's a program for healthcare, there's all kinds of programs. But you have to want the help in the first place, and the truth is, a lot of homeless people don't. They want to be left alone.
Yeah, I get that. And another thing I read, it was also kind of about social securities you guys have. And it was said that DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, found out that a database showed that 5 million people over 140 years old still receiving social security benefits. What's like the perception of the American people about, like, the DOGE? Do people think it's a good thing?
Well, there's, obviously, if you're on the left side of the aisle, you hate Doge. I mean, it's funny, people forget their ability to reason when their team loses, right? But the statistic that you're quoting isn't about people receiving payments, although it might be. The statistic is people who have a checkbox marked as being alive, right? Like the living population
Hmm.
of people over 100 years of age was marked as living. I think it was. I forget the exact name of the column, which may or may not indicate that they're receiving benefits, right? Maybe it's a family member using their name. Maybe it's a family member taking advantage of the system. Who knows? Or maybe they're not getting benefits at all, but they're just lost in the system somewhere. That remains to be seen. So I'll be really careful about, what I say here because I haven't looked at the research closely. Um, but yeah, it wasn't that they were receiving benefits. I just want to clarify that. It was that they were marked alive in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I get that. I also read that Doge announced that it wants to audit, or yeah, announces audit into security SEC actually for fraud, abuse, and waste. Do you feel like, or do you believe there is a lot of stuff that can be leaked, that was like basically going wrong in the past? Like people were, like especially in the SEC, I know it's always been like there were people who liked it, there were people who hated it. Um, do you think there's actually stuff they did, um, like regarding like fraud, abuse, or waste?
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, nobody wastes more money than government. And it's kind of funny that I didn't know that we were going to talk about this, so I'm not really prepared to go too deep on it. But, when it comes to government waste, man, everyone has known for many, many years that government wastes money. There's always been the funny example of like the $10,000 toilet seat or the, $60,000 hammer or whatever that they get audited and this stuff comes to the forefront. So people have known this for years and they've been waiting for, someone to step in and say, hey, where is this money actually going? And while some of it might be going to clandestine operations that, that can't be categorized publicly, there's a lot of it that is just given to people as handouts and given to people as kickbacks. I mean, I think the most telling one is like the Clinton Foundation. I think something like 10% of the funds from USAID have actually gone to help people. The other 90% get lost in expenses and travel and salaries and benefits. And, you got someone like Chelsea Clinton, receiving money from USAID. And I mean, it makes no sense, right? Like these people haven't really provided any value to the world, but somehow they're worth $70 million. And this is all taxpayer funds. And it just, when you start looking at it closely, there's really no justification for where the money went or why it was spent other than just kickbacks and, favors. And that's what I think people are so pissed off about. And especially the people on the right who've been paying taxes for years and years and years on end. Oftentimes when you add up all the taxes that you pay close to half your income or more, depending on what tax bracket you're in and how your business affairs are structured. In the highest tax bracket plus business income plus dividend income. If you pull money from 401ks, you're taxed. If you just all these different taxes, if you add them up, fuel taxes, excise taxes, energy taxes, even taxes on your cell phone. Like if you just add all that stuff up, for most people, it's just a ridiculous number that they're paying to the government every year. Some of it local, some of it federal. And the people who play by the rules and have participated and, have, paid all their money in, I mean, they're upset. They don't want to see their money wasted. They want to see it go, to the services that the government promised to provide. And unfortunately, that hasn't been the case for a long, long, long time. And so whatever DOGE exposes, I think will be a good thing in terms of transparency. And, hopefully we get to the bottom of it. But I think it's just going to be more team red, team blue stuff. If you're on team red, you're happy. If you're on team blue, you're pissed off. And until people start thinking, nothing changes.
Yeah, man, it's actually so sad to realize that every government and its leaders are primarily focused on lining their own pockets. But yeah, another thing, like talking about leaders, most of the people in this space have probably heard about the case that we recently had with the Libra coin, which was promoted by the leader from Argentina. I forgot his name. Let me see. I wrote it down somewhere. It is Javier Milei. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He actually, or our Argentine lawyers file fraud charges in criminal court against him for promoting a crypto rug pull. And it's interesting because this case has been so big again, after the ones we recently had with the Melania coin. Trump to some degree, because I know a lot of people made money with Trump, but obviously a lot lost money as well.
Mm-hmm.
But people seem to realize, or that's at least what I see, that there is a little shift in the sentiment that people seem to be like going back to Ethereum and feel like, okay, Solana, like most people have realized that Solana is some sort of shitcoin casino, and some try to regain trust to Ethereum and its layer ones. What do you think about that?
I think there's some truth to that. I mean, Solana hasn't done itself any favors by, promoting things like Pump.Fun. I mean, Pump.Fun is a shitty, ridiculous nonsense casino that draws in people who are desperate and want to make money. And if you're an insider, you can make money. Just like if you're an insider in anything, you can make money. It doesn't require any skill. It doesn't require any talent. You just be an insider and you follow the directions that you're given by the group. But that's not the way that the average person sees it. Most people see it as an opportunity to, turn $1 into 10. And as long as they see it as an opportunity to turn $1 into 10 in a high inflation environment, in a low income environment, or a low hourly pay or salaried environment, then it's almost like they're forced to gamble. Because they know if they hold their dollars are being, deflated or I should say inflated away by government spending. And it just creates a real negative incentive, or it's not a negative incentive, a negative result from the fact that we've incentivized people to have to gamble to get by. And that's just wrong. So, Pump.Fun, what it is, in terms of being a shitcoin casino, I don't support it whatsoever. The technology is super cool. And it's, it's proven itself to be, an amazing service for what it does. But the question is what it's doing serving people? And I think a lot of projects in Web3 would serve themselves well by asking that question, because very few actually do. So in my opinion, when you have so many people get fucked so many different ways, in the same market, they're going to look for something to blame. And it just so happens that Pump.Fun is on Solana. So Solana's going to take the blame. Well, why is Pump.Fun on Solana? We got to ask that question. Well, because Solana's tech is incredible. It's awesome. It's inexpensive relative to Ethereum. You can deploy quickly. You can do a lot of different things on Solana that aren't the same on Ethereum. And so, at the end of the day, the Solana tech is not in question. It was the chosen tech. It's the tech that people, wanted to lean into. And there's nothing wrong with Ethereum either. Ethereum's a great platform. But at the end of the day, it's slower, it's more expensive. And, if you're a builder and you're looking to, remove barriers to entry, you're going to go where it's less expensive and faster. So, you're going to end up on the tech that works for you there. So I think at the end of the day, the negative sentiment around Solana will pass, just like the negative sentiment around Ethereum was passing, right? So, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, Ethereum is dead, right? That was the headline. Ethereum's dying. Ethereum's going to be dead. Solana's going to kill Ethereum. All these different technologies are going to kill ETH. Well, what are we seeing? We're seeing sentiment shift again. And sentiment will always shift as long as humans have the ability to think for themselves and form ideas. And someone will step up and take the lead and say, hey, well, we need to think this way about this. And they'll get a large enough group of people to follow them who will agree, and sentiment will shift, right? So I don't think anything of it. Solana's not going anywhere. Ethereum's not going anywhere. I don't think Ethereum is going to be what people thought it was, because they shift from proof of work to proof of stake a few years ago. And that basically invalidated all their level 2s. There's no need for their level 2s anymore. Solana never had that issue. It came on, late in the late teens, and has been the only token to outperform Bitcoin over the last cycle. So I don't think Solana's going anywhere. Will it flip ETH? I don't know. That seems to be the argument. Whether or not something can survive, whether or not it flips ETH, I don't think it matters if it flips ETH or not. I just think it matters. Is it easy to use? Is it growing in adoption? Does it have business use cases? Does it have technical use cases? And if the answer to those questions is yes, it's not going anywhere.
If you look at the Solana price, I think it's currently around 175 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember back then, what was the first big meme coin launching on Solana? I think it was Bonk. And we've seen the Trump coin recently, which basically caused Solana to go to almost $300 and reach a new all-time high. What kind of impact do you think Solana meme coins do have on the Solana price? And do you feel like Solana has been overvalued due to that fact, or do you think Solana would have gone there anyway?
Honestly, I think this is a hard question to answer, because it's almost being asked in reverse. Anytime you're looking at something that's built on something else, the foundation is always going to be more valuable, in my opinion, because I'm going to be looking at the long-term, I'm going to be looking at the long-term play. And the long-term play for Solana has to do with Solana, not what sits on top of it, whether it's NFTs or meme coins or, pick your random technology, staking websites, dApps. These are all like service-related things that serve a particular market or a particular mindset, or try to solve a particular problem in the marketplace. And those are all, valuable pursuits to some degree, so long as the market is stable and growing. But the question about Solana being dependent upon what rides on top of it is irrelevant. It should be, are the things that ride on top of Solana relevant? Because Solana itself hasn't changed in terms of being a good place to build. So as long as it's a good place to build, whatever the next piece of technology that comes out that is, broadly embraced, whether it's AI or the next dApp or whatever, then it's just going to come back in terms of energy to, all right, this is a good chain to build on. So I don't think the secondary stuff matters as much as the primary. In this case, it's kind of like, do you want to buy oil or do you want to buy a company that sells oil? Well, if you want to eliminate complexity, then you just buy oil. If you want to deal with complexity and wonder whether or not the management team is good and it's going to pay a dividend and they're going to find oil in the ground, then you might buy an exploration company or a company that sells oil. but that's secondary to the fact that oil is still valuable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, but if we like go back and compare it to ETH again, like let's just take the NFT marketplace. I know in the very beginning, Ethereum people always looked at our Solana marketplace as if we were like just kids wanting to play with NFTs as well. But in the beginning, we were never taken seriously. Um, do you think it's an advantage for ETH that it has these price barriers? Like it's expensive to mint. It was quite expensive to buy, or at least like more expensive compared to Solana. Do you think that kept away the degens and made it some sort of like the luxury chain for
This
the
is
big players?
Yeah, this is actually a really good question. Can you hold on for 2 seconds? I got to take care of something real quick here in the house. I'll come right back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Hold on. All right, man. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Created an editing problem for you. The silence ends at 24 minutes and 20 seconds in. Just FYI. So anyway, you were asking about ETH and the barrier to entry. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so basically, I remembered that back then ETH people were basically looking at Solana people like, hey, look, these kids want to play with NFTs as well, and that came to my mind that it might actually be an advantage for ETH that it has these barriers, like not tech wise, but like to keep away the degens.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth in that. We talk about this a lot in traditional business, and I don't think people have translated it to the world of like Web3 and NFTs yet, although it's happening. And you see this in services, like who would it be? Like Helios, for example. Like we pay Helios, $50 a month. Like I just got billed again from Helios to have access to like Web3 endpoints, right? And the reason I pay $50 a month is because the free tier is garbage. And every free tier that I've tried is garbage. So it's do I want to sit here and struggle with limits and really poor service, or do I just want to pay for something that actually works? And okay, so what does that do? Well, it eliminates everybody who's not serious immediately. It eliminates people who can't afford to spend $50 a month to just connect to a server, right? So there is a barrier to entry there. And that barrier creates a gateway whereby someone who has a little bit more funds or a little bit more seriousness or both will come and play at that level, right? The same is true of NFTs. The same is true of DApps. I mean, all of this stuff just comes back to the fact that if you have something that's truly valuable, people will pay for it, and you'll get a higher caliber individual who comes into your universe who's more serious. And if you've ever done sales, this is true. Like when you're dealing with people who have money, it's much easier to sell stuff. They think less about it because they know it's not about the money, it's about time. Whereas someone who's poor is always thinking about time. Right? Like, I'll do it myself kind of a thing. Whereas someone with money is going to pay someone to do it because they know that time is the only resource they can't get more of, So at the end of the day, when we have these gates set up, whether it's ETH being more expensive than Solana or not, there is going to be some gatekeeping. There is going to be certain people who are priced out of the marketplace. And now at the end of the day, when I look at ETH, I don't know that the success rate in terms of NFT projects is any higher, to be honest with you. So I don't know if it, has anything to do with like the level of rugging that's happened on ETH versus the level of rugging that's happened on Solana. Because pretty much every ETH project I've bought has rugged or disappeared as well. So I don't know what those numbers are. It'd be really interesting to see if it's different or slightly better. My guess is it would be slightly better, but my experience tells me it wouldn't be by much. But at the end of the day, when we have a consolidation, like right now, what I feel like is happening in the market is people are capitulating, like mentally, they're capitulating. They're like, oh, well, we're not going to get the same run up we got last time, or, we're not going to get an NFT bull run, or we're not going to get this, or we're not going to get that. And they're sort of they've been in it for so long, like mentally it's just dragging them down. They're getting depressed. They're not thinking it through, and they're getting to this point where it's just time to quit, right? This is where the person who doesn't quit actually wins. And so there's a certain element of that goes into the gatekeeping. Like someone who has a higher amount of money invested is generally less likely to quit or less likely to walk away from a thing, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that, because it costs more to get started on ETH, that the people who went there to start in the first place, couldn't afford to lose what they invested. It doesn't mean that at all. It might mean new people coming into the marketplace avoid ETH and go to, one of the L2s like Polygon or whatever, or go to Solana. But it doesn't necessarily mean the OGs would have been impacted at all, because remember, Solana didn't even come around until like the late teens. So I'm not really sure if it's an accurate comparison between those two chains. I mean, it might be more accurate to compare ETH to something that came out about the same time as ETH, which I can't really even remember if there was many chains at that point. That was like 2012 or 13.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had a platform like Pump Fund, for example, on ETH, if the ratio or the rate of rugs would be much smaller compared to Solana now. Because if you look on Pump Fund, you can basically see from 100 projects 99 rug instantly.
Yeah.
And I feel like if there was a big like a barrier to create a coin, like I don't know, you have to spend $500 or something. That there would be a lot like, or like it's actually like it's not even too difficult to basically enhance the experience on Pump Fund. Even if you had like KYC on like once you want to create a coin or something, like it would make it so much better. But I feel like if you look at the 24-hour revenue from Pump Fund, which is crazy. I think it was at some point at like $500,000 per day. They don't want that,
Yeah, I mean, if you're Pump Fund, like, what's your business model, right? Like, your business model is you make money on the transactions, right? You don't really care what happens to the tokens. So you're just providing a platform for people to gamble, right? And that's a very different model from having, some sort of investment in what happens to the tokens or the projects after, they go live, right? And this is where you get into the quality of the creator, like the quality of the project. I don't think anyone really launching on Pump Fund, by and large, has any serious desire to create some long-term, meme coin, memification project. I don't think that that's their goal. I mean, and if you look at the numbers, like what you're talking about, the numbers tell the tale. And it is just simply that we're here to ride this thing up and as high as we possibly can and try to sell before everybody else sells and then get out before it hits zero, right? And so, I mean, it's literally like it's literally like a guessing game as to at what point should I sell, right? And that's the gamble. I'm going to buy this thing. At what point should I sell? That's all I care about. And then it's going to go to zero and I'm going to the next thing. And I mean, of course, that's not sustainable. If it were more expensive, would there be less of them? Probably. Yeah. Like if you had to vest a certain amount of income or a certain amount of money before you could launch, I think that would definitely slow down the number of people just throwing shitty projects up. But that doesn't make them any less shitty.
Yeah, that's true. I think before we had Pump Fund, when people wanted to create a meme coin on Solana, they actually had to. You probably know that better than me, but I think they actually had to put some money into the liquidity pool. I think they could like get it back then, but you had to at least like get like I don't know $500 or $1,000 or something in order to make it look like a solid coin. From like looking at the liquidity pool, because nobody buys into something that has no liquidity.
Right.
But like in the end, I think unless the contract was how do you call it, like renounced or something, when you cannot change anything anymore, and and then you can like just pull the liquidity whenever you want. Like, and that's usually a big red flag when you look at coins and you see that it's like still mutable, where you can like, or you can like still mint coins. Yeah, and that's like what's been done before Pump Fun. That people created these kind of coins, but needed at least some sort of liquidity
Mm-hmm.
to put it into the coin.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they were still able to just pull it out of the coin again after they put it in.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of schemes where people were trying to sort of minimize the risk. I mean, the truth is, in a world where people are anonymous, there's a very, very low barrier to entry. It's going to be almost impossible to do something like that. You know, I mean, there's reasons that the traditional markets exist the way that they do because, you know, if you are a regulated entity and there's certain things you can and can't get away with, those things are largely predicated on what would allow some semblance of survival of your business or your company or your project, right? But none of that exists in Web3. It's just the Wild West, and you do what you do, you know, based on what you can afford to do or what you know, or what you think you can get away with is more likely the case, right? So, you know, until that changes, or I should say, until people who are participating in these markets realize that the gambling for the vast majority of people does not pay, it continues the way it continues. And so, one of the things that I'm actually kind of happy to see is the fact that there seems to be a bit of, you know, like I said, capitulation of the around the mindset of people participating in this nonsense. They're starting to get it. You know, it's almost like fishing pressure on a lake. You know, when you throw the same lure so many times, the fish get wise to it and they stop biting it. And it's kind of the same thing on Solana. You know, we've had the same lure, this meme coin, that meme coin, the other meme coin. And after a while, after you've seen it so many times or you've been burned so many times, you know, hopefully you learn from that and you start to pull back away and start looking at longer term plays like what we're doing with Goodfellas, or you start looking at real world asset tokenization, again, like what we want to do with Goodfellas. You start looking at longer term cases because I mean, the truth is the shortcut is the long run. And, you know, try to tell that to someone in crypto who made a bunch of money in the first run up or the second run up. You know, they're not going to listen to you because they've never seen a down market really. You know, they've never really seen a, you know, like a 10-year slide of a market. They've seen a massive pullback in 1 year or 18 months, and then they bought at the bottom and they started riding it back up. But that's not normally how markets work because they don't cycle that quickly. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I think people ultimately will get smarter, but unless and until people who are putting this stuff out and the people who are buying it, unless they start to disconnect, you know, it just continues until it breaks. And I think right now we're getting to that point where people are so fatigued, you know, and the people putting this junk out have done it the same way so many times that, you know, it's just going to stop working. It's like, we've seen that lure enough times, guys. We're not falling for it anymore. And then you start to get some changes and some shifts. And maybe there's 5 or 6 out of the thousands and thousands and thousands that actually, you know, end up being worth something. But, you know, 99.9% of them are going to zero and never coming back.
Yeah, I feel like at least to some point before Pump Fun managed to make it so easy for people to create meme coins, it was even like in the NFT space, somehow a little bit like this. Like I remember back then when people, you know, created some, I don't know, like stick figures or like I don't know, basically drew some images on Paint or took a photo of themselves, like 100 different photos with different moods, and just went to launch my NFT and launched these NFTs for like pennies in order and hoping for it to go up. And I feel like that was kind of the meme coin business before we had Pump Fun and that whole meme coin meta, because we had something like that in the NFT space as well back then. I remember so much shitty art being launched, and you know, projects just hoped for the best, and some like every now and then a project succeeded, and there was basically a little hype, and it went all the way up and all the way down again. And yeah, I'm pretty happy about the fact, because you mentioned the NFT bull run a couple minutes ago, and I'm not even sure if I want that. I'm not even sure if I want that kind of bull run that we had. Getting that hype and horse shit again, of with like celebrities promoting any kind of shit, without any substance. So I'm actually pretty happy with the way everything goes right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think you're right. Like ultimately, all of these things that are not sustainable fall in on themselves, and sometimes there's a big negative backlash, and sometimes they just quietly disappear. And I think what's happening is, you've seen, like you mentioned, Launch My NFT, right? Like it's an absolutely wonderful platform. Their platform's actually really easy to use. I've minted a few things there. But I've never publicly minted anything there, just because of its reputation. And so, we've had these types of things come and go. We've had these sorts of ideas put into the marketplace, and these utilities put in the marketplace. And all of them in and around the idea of sustainability or long-term nature, nothing that was meant to be hyped has lasted ever. Like literally nothing. Not one thing. And so at the end of the day, what is it that sustains a project or an idea or a D app or a coin? Well, it's a number of people who fully get behind the team or the idea, and they commit themselves to staying with it. And when you have something that's meant to be pumped and dumped, you immediately lose that aspect of the build, right? So if your goal is to pump and dump a token, or your goal is to pump and dump an NFT, then you get exactly what you plan for. And so, when we're talking about Goodfellas and building this thing out, we intentionally avoided all that because that's not what we want to be associated with. So like reputationally, you're asking about ETH versus Solana versus ETH L2s and all the rest of it. Like ultimately, I don't think any of that really matters. It just comes down to the reputation of the builders. And if you have a good reputation on a given chain, then, people will come to you who align with your vision, because ultimately, wallets are going to continue to incorporate different chains and different tokens, and it'll be simpler to operate on multiple chains and all the rest of it. So it just comes down to like reputation. And do I ever want to sacrifice my reputation for short-term gain? No, absolutely not, because you can never get it back.
It's funny. I actually received an offer on my Twitter, which is probably a scam anyway. But he was like, "Hey, do you want to post my meme coin for $600?" And I was like, "Sure, man. Of course I will." Like, what a dumb question, especially when people look at your accounts and see that you actually have a genuine project, as if you would actually like promote some sort of fucking meme coin. But enough people out there who would probably. Um, and as you said, I mean, we do see so many people out there, even celebrities, and that's probably the only reason why so many celebrities hesitate to launch a meme coin, because in the end it's easy money, but it's going to ruin your reputation. I think Rick Ross put one out like 2 days ago, and yeah, in the end it's always like the chart always looks the same, and in the end you'll get all the hate, and you have to see if it's worth it or not, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it all right there. Like that's the quotable right here. The chart always looks the same. I mean, it's so true. If the chart always looks the same and you're not learning your lesson, then you're the idiot, not the technology. Like, if the chart is telling you, hey, your chances of winning here are almost zero, and you continue to play that game, then hey, I got no sympathy for you. It's just one of those things where, like the definition of intelligence is how fast you learn. It's not your IQ score. So if you burn your hand on the stove more than once, you're kind of stupid,
True that, man. True that. So, yeah, for the final moments here, let's jump a little bit into the Goodfellas again. And I think we are pretty close to signing another deal with another artist, a great one, a very unique art. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, give us a little update on the core NFTs. Is there an update or not? Tell us a little bit about the current situation about core NFTs.
Yeah, for sure. The core NFTs, I know I keep harping on these things, and obviously some people get some of the information and not all of it. So just bear with us if you're tired of hearing the same story. But I mean, the truth is the technology is new and not all the tooling is in place. And so what I'm trying to do, and what I will do, I should say, what I will accomplish ultimately, plan hopefully this week, is to have a command line minting situation set up for core NFTs. And the reason I want to do command line is because any service that I use charges us a percentage of the cost to mint. And I don't want to have to pay that if we don't have to, and I want to make sure that we can get this done efficiently and as quickly as possible. So if I can get the command line NFT minting functionality in place, then we can go ahead and start replacing all of the NFTs with the new technology, which is kind of huge because not only does it shrink the size of the data and the storage online, but it gives us the ability to tap into a bunch of new technologies. And we can start talking about more of what those look like, whether it's, fractionalizing NFTs with tokens, or there's all kinds of cool things where you can have soul bound NFTs, meaning that the NFT is permanently bound to a wallet, which makes it, impossible to steal, basically. There's 1,000 different things you can do with the newer NFTs that you couldn't do with the old ones. So, even on like Metaplex's old tooling, they're calling the PNFT standard, which is a standard we were using, they're calling this legacy, meaning they're already phasing it out. So it was only a matter of time before we had to move to core anyway. And given the circumstances of, the theft that we experienced and, the problems with floppy labs, it just makes sense to go ahead and do it all right now. Like, go ahead and take all of the punishment and all of the negativity right now, deal with it, get it back into the marketplace, take care of the holders, give them a better piece, and then ultimately a better experience. And, that's really what we're about right now. So this week's target is to basically get the command line minting functionality set up, which, to be honest with you, I already have, but I have a very basic example set up that doesn't actually include the images, which of course is not going to work for us. So I've got to get the upload to Arweave, which is, like Web3 storage. I've got to get those uploads and those URIs integrated into what I'm doing. And that seems to be the piece that is missing from the technical documentation. And of course, me coming at this code from sort of a layman's viewpoint, that it might be there and I might just be missing it, but I'm going to have to get some information from probably people who are much smarter than me on how to get that set up. And that's the target this week.
Yeah, man, sounds great. And I really look forward to have these NFTs ready. From what I heard from you, Metaplex is pretty supportive. And that's a good thing to have that kind of people in this space. So looking forward to that. We're actually having a couple of mints that we planned within the next few weeks and months. And yeah, it's going to be great, man. Great to be back. Great to have the foundation back with the core NFTs, especially if you have so many more possibilities with them. So yeah, couldn't be more excited about that. So I think we covered it all. One more thing. I will be traveling again. So we will have spaces on Friday, hopefully. Jason is going to get a co-host, or he's at least he tries. So yeah, I'm not sure if I can be there on Friday. I will be on the slopes this weekend and be back next week. So yeah, still will obviously try to be on spaces. Cannot guarantee, but yeah, this should be it. Jason, do you have any final words?
Yeah, we'll definitely have spaces this Friday. Actually scheduled to do a spaces with Maria on the artwork side of things directly following the Goodfellow space. So I don't know, maybe we can combine energies there. I'm not sure, but we'll definitely have spaces. And if anyone listening to this wants to step up and co-host, feel free. But we'll definitely be there. While Alex is doing his skiing or whatever, his yuppie sports, and we'll have a good time.
Perfect, man. Looking forward. Definitely, I'll definitely be there in some way, even if I'm just like listening to it while I'm driving. Looking forward to that. So, fellas, have a great week. We look forward to Friday, and we hope to be able to provide a great exchange core NFT experience soon. Stay tuned about that. All information, as you guys are used to, will be in the Discord. So have a great week and see you guys next week. Bye bye.
Take care, guys.